Welcome to the Paul Chandler Show, everyone. I'm your host, Paul Chandler. In tonight's episode, we're going to be covering the medical coding process from the beginning to the end, from the beginning where the doctor does the documentation, and to the end, showing you how it'll be submitted on the claim software for payment. That way, then the doctor can get reimbursed for the work that they do. So stay tuned, we'll be right back, and we'll be covering tonight all the steps of the medical coding process. Welcome back, everyone. And tonight's episode, we're going to go over the medical coding process. So then that way, as a medical coder, if you're looking to switch to this field, you'll know what we're actually going to be doing. So there are several steps in the medical coding process. And the first step would be the doctor has to see the patient. So in medical coding, you may be a coder for the inpatient side, the outpatient side, or maybe both. But just for clarification, inpatient medical coding deals with the hospital side. And hospital can be inpatient or outpatient, but the inpatient side for medical coding, that is when a patient is admitted into the hospital. I mean, like they're going to be there at least overnight. But then outpatient hospital, that's an example of when the patient goes to the hospital, so as in they're on hospital property, they have a procedure done, and then they go home. So while yes, on hospital property, some locations call it same-day surgery, some call it outpatient surgery, tomato, pop and soda, same thing. But both aspects can happen on the hospital side, inpatient or outpatient. But then outpatient is most commonly referred to as a doctor's office visit. Let's say, for example, if your PCP, your primary care physician, is in internal medicine or family practice. That is an example of the outpatient side. So then the next step is step number 2. After the doctor sees the patient, they have to document. Whether the provider, the doctor, is documenting while the patient is still in the room, or if they do the documentation afterwards. Either way, somehow the doctor has to go typey into the computer and follow all the steps that they did during the procedure, or if they're documenting an office visit or hospital visit stay. For example, the hospital is where the doctor and patient are, the patient's in their bed in their room, and the doctor comes to the patient on the hospital side. So this is the part where, again, if the patient had a procedure, the pre- and post-op diagnosis are there, as well as notes for the procedure itself, the step-by-step replay, I did this and I did that, and blah, blah, blah. Or on the office visit side, or the doctor seeing the patient at the bedside at the hospital. And that's where the doctor is documenting the history portion, the exam, and then the medical decision making, the MDM as we call it, which is what the doctor is going to be doing to treat the patient in the future. So as far as the doctor visit, the history, think of that as the past, the exam, today, the present, and then MDM or medical decision making, the future. The third step directly involves the coder. This is where the coder extracts or they translate. So the coder will take the documentation, whether it be an office visit, a hospital visit by the patient's bedside, or procedure. They'll look at the documentation and then extract out the keywords that as a coder we need to be able to translate the office visit, the hospital visit, or the procedure into a series of codes. And no matter what type of EMR or EHR program that the coder is extracting that information from, it doesn't matter where it is on the chart or the record. That's what we call the visit for the day or the procedure, where the notes are. Think of it as if you can click print and it's there on paper, we can use it as far as the coders. Now, in 2020, we do have a lot of coding computer programs that are out there. And those are called computer-assisted coding programs. and those can be used as well, or the good old-fashioned paper books. And here we have an example of the 3 coding books that the outpatient coder will use. We'll use the CPT book, the current procedure terminology for the CPT book, aka the procedure book, the ICD-10 book, International Classification of Diseases, which we generally just call the diagnosis book, and the 10, so ICD-10-CM, that means that we're in the 10th version of it, and not to do a history lesson on you, but we've been in this version for a little over 5 years. And then the HIPAA book, the HCPCS, Healthcare Common Procedure Coding System. So this is, think of it as, if there's not a space in the CPT book, they'll put it in HIPAA book. The HIPAA book is where we'll see, example, Medicare has their own certain codes that they like, so does Blue Cross Blue Shield. Our medical supply codes are in the HIPAA book. The DME, the durable medical equipment, those in the HIPAA book, for example, and also drugs, as in like medications. And so step number 3, the coder looks at the op report or the office visit or hospital visit note and extracts out certain keywords here and there and puts those in a series of codes that go on the claim form. Step number 4, after the coding has all been done, we simply click submit. If it's an electronic claim or the old school paper claims have to print it out, maybe it's a PIP, personal injury protection or auto injury accident. So no matter what kind it is, then we submit the claims, whether it be electronic or paper. Now, after the claims are submitted, then there's 2 different options. So that's why we have step A for step 5. So really we have step 5A or step 5B. Step 5A, whoop, whoop, there it is, the money. The claim gets paid. And now, even though we do get a payment, well, I should say if and when we do get a payment for the claim that we submitted, it's so important to double check. Don't just automatically download it, download the remit, as in the breakdown of the payment. Just automatically download it and that's it. You always want to do audits on your remits when they're downloaded to make sure that every line that was paid correctly. But that's one step, either step 5A, the claim gets paid, let's say if it's paid perfectly well, everything's okay, then we're done. Or we may have step 5B. Oh no, claim gets denied. So what it could be for the medical claim for either denied or rejected for whichever reason it is. Maybe the patient's insurance had expired or possibly it had not started yet. Or maybe the patient had the procedure too many times, or this maybe a certain test too many times in a certain time period than their insurance allows. Or maybe they had what their insurance carrier deemed to be a experimental procedure, and what one insurance carrier deems experimental, the other may not. So that is based on the individual insurance carrier, or it may be for the diagnosis. So let's say, for example, a patient has, let's say maybe they have CKD stage 3, chronic kidney disease stage 3. So CKD, or chronic kidney disease, that goes from stages 1 through 5, and then what we call ESRD, end-stage renal disease. So that is worse than stage 5. Well, maybe a patient has stage 3 CKD, and the certain claim form that was submitted, let's say the procedure that was done, the patient would have to have stage 4 or above. That would be the whatever policy that the insurance carrier has, but those are 3 examples of why a claim could get denied or rejected, besides the fact that the insurance policy not being active. So if a claim is denied, then we need to see why it's denied or rejected. So that gives us to step 6, which takes us back to what step 3 was. But now though, depending on how the office is set up, the biller may look at it, whether if they're a certified coder or not, all depending on the company. But either the biller or the coder will look at the denied or rejected claim and correct it. After they fix those corrections, then we have to resubmit the claim. Takes us to step number 7, just like how it was in step number 4. After the corrections are made and the claim submitted for step number 7, then hopefully we end up with step number 8. The claim is paid. And no matter if the claim is paid the first time around, or if you do an adjustment for it, or maybe fix a denial or rejection, just as long as you get money at the end, that's the big picture on it. But the same steps before, where even if we had to, as far as a coder or biller, correct a claim and then resubmit it, if we have to do that, then that's fine. But then just as long as we get the claim paid at the end, then that's what that would be. So those are the steps for a medical coder. Again, to recap, step number 1, the doctor sees the patient. Step number 2, the doctor documents either the visit with the patient or the procedure that was done. Step number 3, the coder extracts the keywords out of the documentation and translates it into the certain codes that are going to be on the claim form. Step number 4, the claim is submitted, goes out the door, or electronically click the submit button, goes out electronically. Step number 5, and hopefully we're done after this, the claim gets paid, and we just ensure that the payment received was correct. Or unfortunately, step number 5B could be the claim is denied. If that case, then we go on to step number 6, which is when the biller or the coder corrects the either denied or rejected claim, if that's possible. Step number 7, then the claim is submitted once again. And then step number 8, hopefully then the claim gets paid. So again, those are the steps of what a medical coder does, and hopefully that provides you a little bit more information on what this awesome career is and what we do during our job. Thank you for taking the time tonight to learn all the different steps that the medical coder does in their daily work. Hopefully you have some inside information, so that way if you're looking to be a medical coder, you know more on what we do, so that way then we can help the providers and the healthcare system earn all the possible highest reimbursement for the work that they do. Again, I do thank you for watching this episode of the Paul Chandler Show, and have an awesome rest of your day.